So, attention, please. So, yeah, I wanted to, there's an interesting story. I find it interesting because it's so unexpected, actually, in a certain sense. A major writer of the 21st century, very influential writer. His name is David Foster Wallace, and he was really a postmodern writer and really at the avant-garde forefront of writing. And he gave a talk at Kenyon College, which is also a very literary college. He gave a talk about 20 years ago, and a talk he was asked to give the graduation speech, the commencement address at Kenyon College. So he was there, and he gave this little story, which has gone down as kind of legendary, and it's repeated. But I just heard it again, and I finally understood it. And I think it's so relevant to our whole 3 days here. It's just kind of too bad that people that are supposed to be aren't here because they're missing the cornerstone. So if nothing makes any sense to them anymore, I don't know. That's not my problem. But anyways, so the story goes. So there's in an aquarium, and there's two fish that are swimming along, and an older fish comes by and says, "Hey boys, how's the water?" And then the two fish swim on, and one fish says to the other, "Well, what the hell is water anyway?" So here they're in the aquarium, and they've got all this water around, but they don't realize what water is. So I mean, I almost feel like saying, well, what the hell is God anyways? I mean, there are some things that are so obvious, that they're so present in our lives, that the most obvious is what we're not always picking up on because it is too obvious. So I think that's really a lot of what I think we'd like to do, work through these 3 days, is how do we see God present in the reality around us? How are we seeing a world that is speaking to us of God? How are we communicating with this world? And how is that helping us to grow? As I mentioned in a little blurb I put in Facebook, this retreat is on prayer. It's on prayer, and it's about how do we live in union with God? How do we live in union with God's creation? And how do we live in union with ourselves? And so how do we use the tools that we've given by God? We've been given tools by God to do this. He's given us gifts, capacity, tools. So how are we making the most of that to develop this life within us? And it's rather interesting because certain David Foster Wallace, what's so interesting is because he would seem like your most kind of atheistic, sort of secularly, worldly, atheistic person, but on the other hand, there was a much deeper side for him. He was somebody that actually appreciated people who believed. I'm not exactly sure where he was with his own belief, but it mattered to him that people actually believed that it was important for them. And in this speech, he actually gives quite a bit of a lesson, really kind of a morality lesson that wasn't originally his intention, but he gives a bit of a lesson to the students and telling them the truth. He says, this isn't going to be an inspirational speech where I'm going to tell you everything is going to be hunky-dory and you're going to go from success to success. I'm going to give you the lowdown. And so that's what he does. And so he ends up telling people, he says, well, you've lived in a life, you've lived in a life where in college you have a lot of freedom, you have a lot of free time, you have a lot of self-time you have a lot of capacity to manage your days and organize your days and do that. So that's your free time. What you're going to go into a world where it's going to be a lot more constricted. You may be working a 9-to-5 job. You may be sitting in a cubicle. You may be commuting to work because really your workplace is, you're living in a place where there's a lot of jobs, and there's a lot of jobs, but the rent is high, so you're living outside of the town, so you're going to commute. So you're going to spend a lot of time driving back. You may you're getting off work and you've got to get dinner organized. So you got to go to a grocery store, and that's not going to be so because everybody else decides to go to the grocery store at the same time. So you're going there and it's packed out and it's not too agreeable. It's kind of not the place that you want to be at that moment. And then there's long checkout lines, and then you get back in your car. So what's your take on all those things? He's just giving that in an example. He's just saying that's the lowdown. Now, are you going to be doing that? Are you going to be doing that as a person that's just thinking about yourself? Are you going to be doing that as a person who's just considering that how that affects me as an individual? Or are you going to see the larger picture? Are you going to see the larger picture saying, well, hey, maybe I don't have the best job in this company because, hey, I'm starting out, I'm single, I can get by, but what about other people that are raising 3 kids, and having to need more money, more benefits than I do at this point in my life? So am I going to be griping about this job, or am I going to say, well, hey, other people maybe have a better job because they've been around here more, but they also have more mouths to feed? Am I going to see my job as just as something that's that's just about me, or I'm going to see how this job is helping the world, in the sense of, by doing my job well, things work more efficiently. Things work well in this world because I'm doing my job. I'm making things easier on other people because my job is done well and efficiently. So I'm making the whole thing work better. Am I using my time in the checkout line? Am I saying, well, that's time that I can think about things. I can meditate. I can take in consideration the people that are in the grocery store, the other people who have needs there. Am I considering that? How am I using the time that I'm in my car? Am I using that as a time where I can really maybe listen to an audiobook that I like and that I can do? Or am I just going to be grumping all the way home and just going through? So really, and that's the thing, is you think about that, multiply that by so many people, multiply that by so many instances. So how do we live our lives? How do we live our lives? Do we live our lives as saying, well, it's just not good enough, or it's never good enough, or it just doesn't have this, so it's not good, it's not? Are we seeing the negative take on life, or are we seeing all the advantages that are available to us in life? And so what is our take, and how are we approaching that? And so, see, those are the decisions that we make. And he's saying here, you're making decisions in your life, and if you make good and healthy decisions, those things help you along the way. But if you make bad decisions, if you incline yourself to complain and be negative and just see all what's lacking, well, that's going to build up as well, and that's going to be tougher to change or turn around at a certain moment in your life. And also, I found that was also very very intriguing, was that he said that, well, we live in a world, we'll say, okay, I do it this way, you do it that way. Well, that's okay. And he says, well, he finds that a bit superficial. It's interesting because he says we don't ask the questions, why do they do it that way, or why do I do it this way? You see, that's a deeper question, which actually gets back to it's for him, it's not like so much saying, well, you can do it A, B, C, or D way, and that's just, they're all equal, and so it doesn't matter what you do. He's saying, well, why do people do things the way they do them? Why do they do that this way? Why do they do it that way? So why do we do life the way we're doing it? Why do we do that? That's a question. It's an important question for us to ask, is why do we do life the way we do it? Because you see, so I'm talking about these things, but I have the firm belief that our day-to-day life enters into our prayer life. And if we have a day-to-day life, which is a life of peace, of serenity, of tranquility, then that transmits itself easily into our prayer life. But if we have a day-to-day life where we're always complaining, if we're quarreling, even within our minds, or arguments, if we're upset about things, if we're trying to control the future, if we're trying to if we feel hurt from the past, or I know things can come up, but what's our default mode? Ask ourselves, what's our default mode in the day-to-day living? Are we in a mode that's basically peaceful, serene, content with just the way life is flowing out? Or are we always finding fault with things? Are we always saying it's never enough? Are we always worried about what the future holds for us? Are we always 2 steps ahead of us? So again, it's an important aspect, is how does our day-to-day life, how that affects our prayer life? Because if we have a day-to-day life which is in chaos or turmoil, or if it's also wanting to control too much, or If it's not peaceful and serene, then that's going to affect our life of prayer. So, in the same way as what are the thoughts that we go through our mind? Are they thoughts of peace and love and tranquility? Or are they thoughts of anger and are we people who get angry easily over things, or we get upset over things? So violent language, for example, that's harmful. It's harmful not only for our mind but also for our bodies. But peaceful language, I personally believe, is healthy for us and is helpful to our whole system. So do we have thoughts that are of peace and innocence and kindness and warmth, or do we have thoughts that are are violent or angry or bitter or resentful or vengeful? What are our thoughts? And that's from our passions. So we can calm those things down, when we can pacify those things. It helps us a lot as we grow in our own prayer life. So again, what I'm saying, there's this is about prayer, but it's about also uh, a unified life where we have God at the center. We have God who is the center, and we understand that everything flows out from Him. So if we see that all the things that we are a part of in this life, all the things that we do, if that leads us back to God, well, then those are healthy things for us. But if ultimately it doesn't lead us back to God or leads us away from God, then those things are harmful for us. And that's really ultimately a sin. I mean, they say a sin by definition is not doing the will of God, but what's the will of God? Will of God is He wants our salvation. He wants our well-being. He wants our health. So He wants us to use all the good things that are in this life, to use them to lead us back to Him. So He doesn't want us to use them in a way that leads us away from Him. And again, I'm not just saying that in a purely moralistic sense. I'm saying that if we're, I think I've said that, I know I'm kind of wearing out this analogy, but I think it's so true, is that the body exists for the soul exists for God. So what we, for example, eat should help our body. It should help our body. And as we help our body, well, then that should help our soul to be in a better place. If our soul's in a good place, we're led to God. So even the most basic things of life, what we eat, what we do, what we see, where is this taking us? And so that's what we have to think about. So there is the sense of our unity, interior unity and that ultimately the things lead to God. But again, it's a lot about the decisions, the little decisions we make in our lives. Are we willing to overcome, the little things? And I think it helps. It's important for the little things also to have the bigger picture and saying, well, in the big picture of things, really doesn't matter that somebody cut me off on the road. Does that really matter that someone did that? Am I going to get upset about that, or I'm just going to be? That's a decision we make. I'm not always perfect about that. Sometimes this is, well, what's the use? I don't know. Why do you do that? So I'm not perfect about it, but I always think, well, really, I'm better off just saying, what's the use? Let them be mad. I mean, let them be angry. It's not on me. So give them a blessing. Yeah, give them a blessing. And again, it's just like, who do we know? I mean, I remember two things that happened just in that very framework. One is I was driving someplace. Somebody, it was down in Paso Robles. My friends are down there, but they drove by me, and they drove by pretty fast, and it was kind of weird. And then I was driving along, and sure enough, about a mile down the road, I saw it was like a minivan. It pulled over to the side, and I saw a little kid run out to a bush. So obviously it was something the kid really had to get. It was like really desperate. So, and then another time here going up to Fort Bragg, a car was like passing people, and then even as we got into Fort Bragg, it was passing people on the turn lane on the inside, and then I was going to the physiotherapy by the gym, and I saw that car pull into the hospital, to like the emergency room. So someone, had to go to here I was kind of being a bit judgmental about, this is a crazy driver, but somebody had to get to the hospital. So, it's good for us. We don't have to be totally naive, but our tendency may be a bit more to be judgmental and see the negative. And again, I think that's also, again, what's our frame of reference? See, that goes back to what David Foster Wallace says. He's talking about this, what's your frame of reference? Are you seeing everything as it relates to yourself, or are you seeing as it relates to the big picture? You see the difference? If we see everything, of course, in a certain sense, it relates to ourselves. It has meaning because it relates to ourselves. But if we give it value just because we're talking about how it relates to me personally, then we're more judgmental or more critical. But we're saying, well, no, hey, we're all trying to get along here. We're all trying to live in this world. We're all trying to cooperate. Well, hey, what's the bigger picture here? What's the bigger thing that's happening? And I think that bigger picture actually, not only does it make us more peaceful, but also I think it helps our prayer life, because I think when we are able to embrace the bigger picture, we are able to have more. There's a larger sense in our heart, in our mind. In the Psalms, I always remember there is that it's a spatial thing. In the Psalms, there's very much angustia, which in French gives the word angoisse, or it gives maybe anguish in English. Angustia, anguish, it's the same root. But anguish is narrowness. It's really being in a tight, narrow place. That's angustia. It means to be in a narrow place. You're in a narrow strait, you're in a narrow place. And so so that's when, but the wide open places where that was more freedom, that was more peace, that was more blessedness, because you're in the wide spaces. I will walk in the wide spaces with you, Lord. So the narrow places, that's angustia, but the wide spaces are open. So, and again, I'm just thinking, when we embrace the larger idea, saying, hey, we're all trying to live our lives, we're all trying to get by, we're all trying to make the best of this, then that helps us to be in the wider space. We're actually embracing that wider space, because really, again, it's what we're drawn to. What we become, what we love. We become what we love. If we love that, we become that. If we, and it's kind of funny, because I really, again, it's kind of amazing. David Foster Wallace goes off, and I've talked about this myself independently, but he talks about that. He says, what happens if you love money? What happens if you love power? It happens if you love money, well, you'll never have enough, and you'll always be seeking that, and it'll just be a endless want. If you love power, you'll always be afraid of those who have power. If you love these things that you love, you become, they affect who you are. So we're called to, you become what you love. So if you love money, you become hard, because I think of money as being hard, coins as being metal, and just being someone who's insensitive to other people. And yeah, if you love power, then I think again, but if you love power, maybe it's because you do have to dominate other people. So by dominating people, that shows an interior weakness, that you're not weak, because it's a flight or fight thing. That if you say, well, if I'm not controlling them, they're controlling me. So you want to dominate people, so you want to love power. So again, but is there peace in that? Where is that ending up? I mean, so what's the solution to that? Are you going to dominate everybody in the world? That's the only solution. I mean, is that a real game plan? Just think, but is it a game plan to say, well, no, I don't love power, I don't love money, I don't love these things. I love God, who is the pure liberating force. And so again, we're in the process of adapting our mind to the big picture, and not resting the little picture. It's just our own personal perspective. It's just how everything relates to us, and that's very personal. But when we enlarge our mind and we're taking on the big picture, then that's what opens us up. That's what frees us, and that's what makes us to embrace and to think we embrace the whole world. We embrace all the needs of the world, and that's one of the most. It's a beautiful thing when we pray as well, to think that we're embracing the needs of the whole world, and we're offering those to God. So we enlarge and embrace everything. So yeah, and so the kind of the second space in this first talk is, so this has to do, as many of you know, I was on a symposium last week over in Redwood Valley at the Holy Transfiguration Monastery, and I happened to, it was nice to see a couple of young men, one man who I both knew quite well in the seminary back in 2016. One of them had just been ordained the Saturday before, and that was a Wednesday. So it was kind of nice. I thought it was really special that he made the effort to come up there, because it was his first week as a priest, and he came up. But so the other one was, he had been ordained 2 years before, but we're close friends, and then between us, and then also with Dr. Lillis, it's kind of a close group of friends. And but the other father, Father Brian Humphrey, who will be going to Rome to do studies, but he shared with us, he did well, that was another beautiful thing, was with these two young priests also did presentations. So it was so beautiful to see them with some of the seminary professors there, to see them giving back really what they had received as in their studies, and to do their own presentation, and they did it quite well. And so it was beautiful to see that. But Father Brian Humphrey shared with us that he, as a priest in Camarillo, he asked people if they would like to pray. He just asked them if they'd like to learn how to pray, or if they'd like to pray together. So, and he would do this on a one-on-one basis. So he'd just go one-on-one, and he developed a little method of prayer that he would use with them. And so, as I mentioned, one afternoon, I asked Father Brian if we could say evening prayer together, and then a couple other people joined us. And then after that, I says, "Well, Father Brian, won't you teach us how to pray?" And he kind of looked at me like, "Well, what? You've been in a monastery for 28 years. What am I supposed to? If you haven't learned to pray by now, there's not a lot I can do for you." So, but anyway, he is beautiful. Him just and a half a dozen people there, him teaching us how to pray. And so I ended up kind of took as his basis, and I'll send it an email to you, Bob, and you can send out on an email. But this is a paper format here. So it's his I kind of adapted. It's based on his, you take one and pass them on. Okay. But it's kind of his method. I kind of adapted things, and I'm still, the idea, I'm hoping that you all could take this, and during the day, maybe try doing this, using this method. And then, and then tell me what your feedback is, what you think about this, or how does it correspond to your own natural way of prayer, or what things can be clear, or what, how does this work for you? Does it work or not work, or whatever? So it's pretty, say a Christian method of prayer and meditation. I'm saying meditation because this is in the sense that the world uses the phrase, which is a lot more about, it's really silent prayer. We would call it contemplative prayer, but when I talk about contemplative prayer, one person actually said, "Oh yeah, I found this great app that does meditation on the phone." And so really I was understanding that they were talking about basically the contemplative prayer that I would talk about in a Christian sense. So the popular way of understanding it really is meditation. For us, it's a bit of in the Christian sense, there's meditation is actually kind of more a reflection on like the word of God, or a conversation with God, where you're kind of dialoguing, talking back and forth, where you're meditating in the sense you're thinking about the passage. But in today's world, meditation has become more of the sense of a silent prayer. Now, maybe I should say at the beginning, there is a very important distinction, between Christian meditation and Eastern meditation. As Christian meditation, we believe in a God who is a creator. And so when we meditate in that sense, when we're in the presence of, it's a personal relationship in the presence of another being. And so that should bring us into a fullness. It brings us into a fullness that can go beyond words, and that might very easily go beyond words, but it's the fullness of a presence. So it's not an absence, because the Eastern meditation, like Buddhism, like Dalai Lama mentioned, he calls it more of a scientific religion. So it's more based on techniques, and the Buddhists don't believe in a creator God. So they don't believe. So it's not. There are certainly very techniques that they developed over the years and have developed and perfected. But it's different in the sense that that's not really, that's more of an absence, because it's an absence of existence, which is considered suffering. So you're taking that away. But for us, it is a very personal relationship, and it is about entering into this fullness that goes beyond words and the presence of God. So that's, I think those are in a nutshell, those are the key distinctions that we hold on to as Christians. So this method, we basically, at the first point, is to place yourself in a relaxed but attentive position. So you want to be open. I think probably for us, it's probably most often sitting. Brian, I know he said with some people that he feels like maybe they just need to be a little more focused, so they might kneel because they're kind of like maybe a little unfocused or just a little checked out. But say, hey, this is something serious we're going to do. But I think in general for us, probably sitting would be the most right position, but be in an attentive but relaxed position. And I think the next thing is we do want to take account of our surroundings. We want to take account of where are we at this moment? Where is the place that we're at? Is it at home? Is it even in the car? Is it wherever we are that we are? And just take account of that and say, this is where I am. This is here I am. And then just really take a couple deep breaths. I mean, this isn't about breathing, but it's just to kind of relax ourselves and take a couple of breaths. And then we're addressing God. So we want to address God. Father Brian liked to make a little act of faith and say, I believe in God, or the act of the apostles. But myself, I'm saying, I think this should really be focused on the friendship and the relationship. I would avoid myself, I would tend not to be too formal in it, that it's something that, how do we express, what's the word that we naturally use for God? Or what's the person? Do we say Lord? Do we say Jesus? Do we say Father? Do we say Abba? Do we say Abba Father? Do we say, what's the word that comes out is most naturally for us? And so we express that and just say, here I am, Father. Here I'm here for you. I love you. And then I think in the sermon, I reverse these two things, and you can see, but I remember there's bringing him our concerns and preoccupations. So I think if we do have things that are on our heart, I mean, it's like a good friend. I mentioned that in the sermon I gave. This is really like a friendship. It's like when you see a friend, you smile, you shake the hands, you embrace them because you're recognizing who they are. You're taking account of who they are. But then you want to say, how are you doing? How have you been? What's going on? And so you're concerned about their well-being, but you're concerned, and so you also want to give thanks to them. You want to give thanks for their presence in your life. So it's good to bring at that moment, I think, whatever it's on our heart as far as a concern or preoccupation, then to give thanks to God, give thanks to Him and I think again, it's like I was saying, what's water, what's God, what are the things, the obvious, we miss the obvious, or we can be so thankful for just the most basic things in our life. We can be thankful for the air we're breathing. We're thankful we have another minute of our life. We can be thankful that we're not in a place that's extremely hot or extremely cold. We can be thankful that we have food in the fridge. We can be thankful that we have transportation, shelter, whatever. Just the most basic things, and also especially just, you don't have to make a litany of this, but what's coming to our heart that we feel like we want to be thankful for at that moment in our lives. And but I think as we want these things for not just for ourselves, for everyone. So we want to include everyone, other people, the whole world. We want to include that, and as we do include them, that embraces, I think that opens, like I was saying, the angustia and the open places, that opens our hearts. It helps us to embrace everybody, our friends, the community, everybody. We embrace them all in this act of love. So we bring them all in that spirit of thanksgiving. And as we bring that, if we do, for me, that normally brings me into a place of more peace and serenity. And I just maybe will repeat a few times, praise the Lord, or something like that. I think my prayer is mostly praise and thanksgiving, but I love being in that silent moment. I love being in that fullness, and that it's therapeutic, it's refreshing, but it's also full, but it's in the sense of praising the Lord and giving thanks for Him. And um, so and then so and I think there's an important thing of considering our, there's this psalm that says, as the suckling baby is in the arms of her mother, so my soul is in you, my Lord. And I think we can actually think of ourselves mothering our soul. I think we can actually think of ourselves as a soul in our own arms, that we are embracing our soul as a mother would embrace a baby. And so when I say our soul, that's our thoughts, our imagination, our mind, and everything, that we're taking that and we're putting that in a safe environment, in a comforting environment, in a gentle environment, and we're feeding that full of love. And so if distractions arise, I think it's not good to just let them dissipate. It's not to try to we say, I'm not here for that, I'm not here about that. It's the little mind that's going off, it's the little voice that's going off, that there's something greater here happening. And so my heart isn't into that, it's into this greater thing. There are things like we can't always repeat if it's a verse of scripture that we like, or we can sing a verse of a song that if we're feeling a little down, we can sing. If we're feeling a little distracted, and even take, if we're really feeling a hard time really focusing, we can maybe take a book, a prayer book or something, a book that has spiritual passages, and just read a few words. It's not about, and help it to impress our imagination and really enter into our mind. And just Saint Teresa of Avila, she had to have a book in her hand when she prayed, even though she's a great mystic. It was just like that physical holding of a book helped her to focus. So maybe for some people it's a book or a rosary or a crucifix or something like that. So that helps us. And again, it's, we can start out with 10 or 15 minutes, and then and I think it's good to, even on our phone, to put the timer on our phone. I think there's just something like, if we feel worried about time, if we just feel free to pray, we can do it. But if we're worried, how long am I doing this? Have I done it long enough? Do I have to do a little longer? Whatever. Just put the timer on and say, okay, this is 10 minutes. I'm giving this 10 minutes to God, and I don't have to worry about that anymore. So I think that's, and I think as we repeat this, it does help us to be more relaxed, more at ease with our mind, more focused. And I think it's something that develops in our life. And I think with you all, with your good virtues already and your desire to love to God, I think it's something that develops. And like I say at the end, the goal is intimacy and friendship with God. So even if we don't feel his presence, he is there, and loving us and wanting us to, waiting for us and wanting to be with us. So it's about the moment of intimacy and friendship with God. So that's so now I think so if you could try, if you have a chance today to put this into practice, and I'd like to have some feedback about what this afternoon. This afternoon, I was proposing maybe we'll go over like the Our Father and just go through that as far as a prayer that can be, how do we say a prayer? It's a prayer that we say all the time, but what are we getting out of that when we say it, and what are we doing that? And also we could go over this. And so as with my retreats and retreats with Dr. Lewis, so we'll do a moment now, or if you close your eyes, and if you fall asleep, that's all right. It's fine with me. No, it means that you're at peace. It means that you're at rest, and it means it's beautiful. I don't look down upon that, and I think so. Let's just here we are beginning this retreat. Here we are in this in Mendocino, where we have friends around California on Zoom, and we're united here. We're united in our love of God. We're united in our love of Christ, and we're wanting to learn and to receive and to fill ourselves up with good things, all the good things that He can pour out in us. And we want to share that between each other here. We want to be one, united in our prayer and our love of God, and united in the good things that we want for ourselves and for each other. And so let us, one of the good things is just to rest in God and just to rest and to be here in sleep and in peace and in tranquility. So let's just take a moment and just be together here, unite our hearts with each other as we unite them with God, and spend a few moments here in silence and prayer in the love of God. So, yeah, so if you have a chance during the day to try this out and see how it works, and then tomorrow give feedback about how it is. So, okay, thank you all. Okay. Bye bye, everyone. Thanks for the Zoom participants.
All right, Father. Thank
See
you.
Bye.
Galo. Hey, lady, unmute.
Hi,
Hi. You missed most of
I
it.
just got here,
Okay.
may have noticed. I have to run and ask Denny something, and then Mary and I may go over to Linda's, so
Okay. No problem.
to take some stuff.
There,
Okay.
we'll start again at 4:30 this afternoon.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
And I'll send out another
If I'm
email.
able and around.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Bye. Uh-huh.